Welcome, 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 everybody, to another episode of Saskia Mahler Show. Today, with the most, I need to growl here almost introducing her with wonderful Charlotte as our guest on this podcast. I'm deeply honored to have Charlotte here today with us. You can instantly drop onto Instagram right now, type in the Wild Fem. You will find her. You're instantly mind blown. Guys, if you're just listening, you instantly need an image to her and you will know why I'm almost growling here and flipping over my chair. Okay. And I am so honored to be having her here today. Grab your seat, ladies, because this is gonna get juicy and red. I am not sure if this is suitable to listen on the subway. Really honest talk here. I think this is really suitable to listen to that when you can totally zone and tune into your most vulnerable and yet deeply erotic self. I have the feeling that's the vibe for today. So that being said, Charlotte, welcome.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I feel like everyone's like already a little bit wet, a little bit turned on, a little bit blushing. It's the perfect setting. And we're recording on Valentine's Day. So yeah, get it. We're also feeling a bit romantic. You know, we got the candles going.
I love that. I love in general that we signed up for Valentine's Day together. That's such a lush thing. And I wish more women in this world would embrace having their girls or their other sisters in their community be their Valentines, actually. Because at the end, what I'm seeing is yes, your romantic partner is super important. But when we're honest, especially our generation and our kind of woman is, yeah, my romantic partner is super important. But my best girlfriends, they were there before and they will be till the end, and that's also pretty romantic, to be honest. So I'm super stoked to setting this symbol today of being here on Valentine's Day together with you.
Yes, it feels like a rebellion. It feels like we're taking back Valentine's Day. Like in the power of pussy, in the power of the heart, we're taking back Valentine's Day as a sisterhood. That feels really good. Yeah.
I love that. Wow. So straight to you, you introduce yourself as Spicy and Sacred Feminine Movement. Yeah. So you're a leader of that Spicy Sacred Feminine Movement, which I super love. And then you're right that you help women to reclaim their voice, body, and expression and to liberate their goddess era. And here I'm super curious to learn from your perspective, why voice, body, expression? What's happening here? And why is this important, this work?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So the first thing that comes to me is just to say that on the subject of taking things back, like we were saying about Valentine's Day, this is in my blood. I'm an Aquarius rising. Aquarius is the rebellion, the revolution. And so that's what I'm here to do, to bring. And for me, it's a rebellion against my work, and everything I do is a rebellion against a society that has tried so hard to silence and reject and burn and suppress and completely dilute the feminine voice, body, and expression. We've been told not to move our hips in a certain way, not to dress in a certain way. That's our expression. Still around the world, women aren't allowed to speak in church, in their families. They're not allowed to speak up for their rights. For centuries, women weren't allowed to have a say in voting. And also, in my personal experience with sexual trauma, you can still have a voice, you can say no, but sometimes it's ignored and sometimes it's taken from you. And I know too many women that have their voice completely silenced and not valued and not listened to. And then with the body, it really comes down to taking back our sacred anatomy, taking back our power portals, the throat, the pussy, the womb space, the belly, making the belly as big as we want, look as soft as we want, like taking back our body from
Mm,
this stereotypical picture that's been painted for us that we have to meet as women. Like, even me with my breasts are really small. I'm a yoga teacher. I love working out. I'm a dancer. Like, I just have a really very small frame. I come from a family of 5 foot women, like we're all really tiny people. And it took me so long to feel comfortable with my small breasts. And I'm like,
mm,
why? Who
mhm,
set up that expectation for me to have a
mhm,
certain shape and size chest? Like, so it's all of this reclamation that we have to do as women. We almost have to fight for our freedom. And so I knew that I wanted to be part of that fight, and I knew that I was put here on this planet to take that back and to make it the
mm,
norm that women can freely dress, express, move, breathe, speak, whatever they desire freely.
mm. I love that. I love that so much. And thank you for sharing all these different aspects you said. Like, as you say, it's so hard to feel home in our body and to acknowledge
Mm.
her. And I'm sure every single woman out there has a body part she feel she's rejecting simply because it's not meeting the modern standards of society, which change every 10 years, by the way, so that's the
Yeah.
next thing. And I just recently had a very similar breakthrough. And for me, like the part in my body that I always hold shame for is my belly, simply because my belly is soft. I have a strong six pack underneath my very feminine body, and I can do whatever I want. It's there. And in the past, I even rejected jobs for huge online yoga studios to teach, because when I'm doing a plank in yoga, my belly's hanging down, no matter how hard I engage. And I was like, I cannot, with this hanging belly, teach online. And it took me years until I'm like, wow, my body is still here. I keep rejecting her. I keep blaming her. I keep punishing her for simply fulfilling her job in the most intelligent way she can. And she still does serve me in that way. Like, my body is still hosting this human experience here. And like, I also have to touch my body right now. And this is so profound when we come to that understanding, like, wow, these vehicles are given to us for facilitating this lifetime experience. This is so precious, and how much the body can take. I'm blown away how loyal and deeply serving and devotional to our spirit the body is. I mean, the body, when we even see, yes, your body manifests disease when you don't treat her well, when you don't listen to her, etc. Disease will come. And that's the thing, like, your body even harms itself in quotation marks by allowing a disease to manifest to communicate your lessons to your spirit. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is huge. This is huge. And we're still against the
Yeah.
body. We're
Yeah.
still rejecting and denying it. And I feel like I'm totally with you on, like, for centuries, the women have been put into a disadvantaged position and women have been punished for being feminine. But I
Mm.
also feel humanity in general, and not only humanity, animals today still, wow, how much do animals get punished for just having an animal body? Like, it's insane. And so there's like, there is this huge thing in our collective consciousness of punishing the body for being. And
Yeah.
this is crazy to me. Like, this is all a gift and a huge blessing. Why do we punish existence for what it is, right? And I have my own theory, because whenever I'm aware of that, I become so deeply grateful and I feel so deeply connected. And I'm coming in this moment of, absolute self-empowerment and sovereignty, where I'm like, they could even right now come and throw me into jail and make me fast to death. And I would be like, I would have my peace. Me and my spirit with this mindset would not be able to become broken because I'm so strong and deeply content with this human existence when I'm holding this awareness. So it's you cannot suppress anybody with that awareness. So this is my idea why probably we are raised collectively over hundreds of generations to deny the physical existence and yet also deny the spiritual existence and kind of like keep us trapped in this hate relationship with the body. Yeah. And so that's also the same reason like you have, like, I feel this vocation, like we need to stop that. It's time. Like we realize this is wrong. So we got to do something about that. And I love how embodied you do that. Like when you speak, there is already a million words coming up where most people are like, oh my God, did she say that? Really? And I love that because who says that pussy or breast? You cannot say that. Who says that? Right? Like,
I do. My friends call me a trigger queen because we'll be like in the middle of the like food grocery shop and I'll be like, guys, I had this orgasm yesterday, and they're like, Charlotte, and I'm like, everyone should know about this. I'm not gonna hide it. So like, yeah, I talk about it in public everywhere, and sometimes people are like, uh, don't talk about pussy in here. We're in the cafe, we're in the grocery store. And I'm like, it's a part of my body. She's equal to my fingertips. She's equal to my lips. She's equal to my eyelids. Why do I have to hide her when she is so equal? And it's the same thing with the body, right? They hide these parts of us that are the most powerful. If we were all walking around so deeply connected to our body, knowing that we're the cosmos in motion, knowing that we're the entire universe, knowing that we are nature, we are not separate from nature, it's for me, what's coming up is really the witch trials. It's like ever since they tried to disconnect humans from nature so that we paid them for our medicine and our food instead of turning to the free resources that we're connected to, it's all about that like society driving forward into a consumerism and capitalism and paying for things that we could ask our body, what do I need? And I also just want to bring up privilege here because like I'm a white able-bodied woman. I can move my body very easily. I am very healthy and I have the privilege and abundance to be able to access food resources. And there might be people listening that aren't so able-bodied, that don't have access to knowledge and wisdom and food straight from the source. I live in the countryside, like I have a lot of nature around me. There's not everyone has access to this and access in their body to feel empowered in their body. So I just want to like say that my challenges with being empowered come through trauma. They don't come through disability or racism that I've experienced. So I just want to acknowledge that and say, like, to anyone listening that's having those layers on top of normal society layers, like, oh fuck, you are so brave. You are so brave for listening to this right now. You're so brave for reclaiming, because that's just another layer that you have to reclaim. And I like feel so in awe of anyone in that position. So celebrating you if you're listening and you're not in the privileged position that I'm speaking from right now.
I love that you're saying that, totally. And what's coming up here instantly for me is like this, you said it now in such an empowered way. And exactly, and I think it's so important to hold that awareness inside ourselves. Like, wow, we are so incredibly privileged, and not hold that awareness is in putting us above, but in that awareness of like, holy shit, we got responsibilities here, you know? Our path has been laid clear, like as much as you can ask for. I just recently read a study that only 25% of humans on this planet have a secure shelter, 3 meals a day, and enough clean water for drinking and washing. Only 25% of humans on this planet. And when I read that, I looked to the side to my dog snuggling in bed next with me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, my dog has more privileges than 3/4 of humanity. Like, what the heck? This is insane, right? And what I experienced a lot in my upbringing was that exactly this awareness, it was raised, but then it was taken as a disempowerment towards us. Instead of like even more taking it as an empowerment, like, you fucking go, girl. You are born in this incredible circumstance. You gotta keep rolling here. You gotta pay some bills, basically. Yeah, you gotta keep your karma clean. And I heard it in the exact opposite. In taking this privilege and using it to disempower ourselves and our voice. Especially as you shared, like, a woman's no doesn't go a long way. A woman's really not complaint, a woman's report about an abuse and violation of her that has happened doesn't go a long way, simply because, yeah, that little bit, you don't get to complain. So many people, that's normal for them, or like they got it so much worse, etc. Where I'm like, no, guys, this is really abusing this awareness around our privilege, actually, to keep taking, because I believe there's one privilege everybody deserves, and that is total integrity and autonomy over the body. Like, everybody has this right to say what it's okay for them and what not. And they have the right to change their mind within the flick of a second without owing any explanation, right? Everyone has that right. Everyone. I also believe animals have that right. We just need to learn to read their body language, to read that, to realize that. And so that's something that's independent of economical or status, or of the status in our society. And yet it is taken our privilege to remove that right from us. So I'm like, what the fuck is actually going on? Like, this is nothing. It's nothing that can be traded in. We cannot use like, oh, you have, why are you complaining? Like, let's say you have an amazing job. It's your dream job in this agency, right? And then the boss calls you in and you want to negotiate around your next salary or the next position, etc. And he's like touching your leg or something, or is giving a little clap walking out, or just making really witty comments, where I'm like, and it still happens nowadays that then people like, yeah, but come on, you got the job, you look cute. Well, why do you dress like that? Well, this is not a trait. Like, this self-autonomy is inherent of our human existence. You can't trade that for nothing, because it's so high of value, anything physical, material, out of proportion completely. So, and I do know this exactly happened to you. How did you transform that? How did you work with that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things here. And one of them is that, like, what I call rape culture, or what it's known as rape culture, which is that it's normalized for women to be abused. And that was my experience when I came forward about it. Everyone was like, oh, maybe he was just like into rough sex. And I'm like, no, that is not what happened. Like, it was a very abusive, violent situation where I had said no repeatedly, and that was taken away from me. So, and this was also like, there's a layer of shame, even as I say it now, even after like 7 years of reclaiming myself and my power and my safety and my sexuality. And that was my journey, really. It's like reclaiming my safety and my sexuality. But I did go for a drink with this man that did this to me. And then there's that layer of like, oh, well, he bought you a drink and he expected X. But no, that's like you said, it's not a trade. Like, no matter how much time, money, energy, love, affection someone gives you, you don't need to pay them with your body
Mm-hmm.
for that. It's never an expectation. So
Mm.
the biggest way that I was able to step back into sex safely after trauma, I mean, it didn't look like that at first. Immediately after the trauma, I was in India. I was backpacking. I was traveling alone. So I stepped into a couple more abusive situations, which I'd never
Mm.
experienced before the trauma, but after the trauma, they were coming because my worthiness was like
Mm.
normalizing that as well, and pulling more of that in. So I then came home to England eventually, and I still hadn't told anyone at this point. I was completely silent about what happened, apart from to one family member that I called the day that it happened, and I said, something really bad's happened, and I don't know what to do, and I'm scared. And that was the person that kind of said, "Oh, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was normal," and
Mm.
like it just shut down my voice then for like 3 more years after that. I didn't mention it to anyone apart from my first partner that I got after the trauma. I told him because I didn't know how my body was going to react to sex. I
Mm.
didn't know how I was going to be in a relationship because I hadn't been in one for years. And the trauma was still in my body, and I didn't know how that was going to go. So I made him aware of it, and he was so compassionate, and he cried when I told him. And I was like, finally, someone
Mm.
believes me. Like, even though he was only the second person I told, it was being heard that was so
Mm.
healing. So actually, talking about it through the work I do, through my business, through the healing journey that I went on, which was particularly with the womb. I stepped into like a womb healing course completely by accident. I didn't have the intention. I didn't have the
Mm.
awareness at the time that
Mm.
my body was storing trauma. I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like walking around, living my life, wondering why I was anxious all the time, not knowing that I was storing this
Mm.
horrific, violent event in my body, in my pussy, in the walls of my womb space, in my heart, in my neck, like everywhere on my body that was touched and abused was holding these little memories and echoes of that moment, of that night. And I didn't know that until I accidentally started working on it. So I went into a womb healing course, which was 2 months long, and my womb remembered. She remembered what happened to me. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we were doing the meditations and the yoni steams and the massages in that course, everything came back. I remembered things that I'd been shutting down for 3 years. Like
Mm.
I completely, I don't know, some kind of trauma response, right, is to like lock it out, block the memory
Mm.
out, and I kind of forgot a lot of the details. I blocked it away. Somewhere my mind had locked it away to try and keep me safe, but it can't stay locked forever. And it
Mm.
comes up in the most least expected moments. So I knew that I had to work on this when it started coming up in that womb training. And yeah, it was a beautiful journey. I was held in circle, and I was able to speak about it to a group of women who then heard and understood me. And so reclaiming my voice was one of that,
Mm.
like reclaiming my voice of the situation, talking about it, saying what had happened to me, and standing up for what I deserved by asking my all my future partners since then for consent. And if you're a trauma survivor that's listening, consent, well, even if you're not a trauma survivor, consent is so important. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
will ask before I get into a sexual situation with any lover, I will say, please ask consent before you touch or enter me. And
Mm.
they've all respected that. And I've been in 5-year relationships since then where they've respected it every single time we make love. And if they don't,
Mm.
I remind them, oh,
Mm.
you just touched my pussy without consent. Do you mind checking in? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm reclaiming that autonomy that you spoke about,
Mm-hmm.
the like the choice. I'm reclaiming my choice, the choice that was taken away from me, the choice that I didn't get that night. I'm reclaiming
Mm.
that every time I make love so that my body hears me and feels me
Mm-hmm.
standing up for her, sticking up for her, speaking up for her. And she built that trust with me through me speaking up for her, asking for what I needed. She built trust and learned, okay, sex is safe because Charlotte's got us. Charlotte's going to speak up for us. Charlotte's not going to let us go through this. She's going to only do what feels right. And so it built so much trust with my body. And I had to do that with myself first. I made love to myself a lot, which anyone that follows me on Instagram or knows my work knows that that's like the foundation of a lot of my work, is making love to ourselves, romancing ourselves, embodying that like sex that we so deserve to receive, that we so want to receive. So giving myself that sex from me was crucial. The most healing thing in my journey was making love to myself, asking myself for consent before I entered myself, asking myself for consent before I touched my body, asking myself when I felt the urge come up, do we want a self-pleasure right now? Is this what we want? Like getting that consent from my own body, feeling what my yes and no felt like again after shutting that down for so long. That's how I really stepped back into reclaiming sex as an empowering birthright that I could have as a woman.
Wow, so much, so deep. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, wow, it's such a deep embodiment of your side to be able to speak about that, and especially speak about it not in a victimizing way, not in a drama fueling way, but in a pure empowered way that allows people to have compassion but not feel misery, and allows people to feel inspired to reclaim themselves. And one interesting thing you said here is really this: asking your body for permission, even when you yourself touch yourself, when you enter yourself. Because it's something I also observed, was that once our needs are overridden and not respected no more, it's kind of like a program, like an old Game Boy. That game is in, and then you're just playing that game, and suddenly you yourself, that's our psyche is so wild and hectic sometimes, you yourself become the perpetrator and your body remains the victim. Like we ourselves rape ourselves, basically. We have to say that because we are so conditioned to do that. We either conditioned to that by never learning about consent, following advice is like, well, he pays you the drink, so you got to give something in return, following the wise of woman for access to womanhood is a transaction that can be bought, right? And following through porn culture as well, very huge. And then also what I often see, because there's many feminine embodiment coaches out there, they're like, and you just got to masturbate every single day, I'm like, yes, self-pleasure is super important. But first of all, what you need to do every day is listen to your desire and reconnect to your sensuality and intimacy. Just like masturbating yourself off won't give you a connection to your intimate self. Totally not, And so I find this a very important part here to see, like, wow, we sometimes take on the role of the perpetrator to keep ourselves in a victim role. And this is huge. This is really, really huge. And also what I want to pick up here, as I said, like this transaction for womanhood. So, and that's leading also in my next question for you. So, one hand, we are normalizing prostitution, low scale prostitution on a really non-consensual level. Something like, he's giving you a drive home. So basically like, your own fault if you're not taking a taxi that he wants to roll over you in a car, shit like this. I mean, luckily now I don't know, maybe I don't find this nowadays such things happening or hear such stories because I'm not in that age no more, maybe. That's like quite early 20s experiences, yeah? But they're just so normalized. But I'm like, wait, where is my self-worth here in the beginning of that thought, of that assumption already? Honestly, like, when he buying me some drinks requires anything back from me, why should I even accept these drinks? If not, it's coming from a place of like, wow, me just sharing that moment and time with this person is inspiring enough, enriching enough to want to give something back to me. And I think this is where actually the core also of this masculine, feminine polarization comes from. Like the woman in her own presence, an empowered woman, is so nurturing and is so radiant in her nurturing and in her sensuality overflowing that it's naturally the other person or especially the other man, to keep the polarity up, wants to return something because he is receiving so much from her presence. I'm like, this already is a transaction in quotation mark, to be like, thank you for giving me your time and attention. Can I give you something back for that? Right? I'm like, there's nothing else that needs to be given beyond that. And so one hand, we are normalizing really low-key prostitution. And I do know some people will be very triggered by that, like, that's exaggerating, whatever, it's not prostitution. I'm like, I think it is when we go into the deep definitions of it. Yes, our society is so fucked up. Let's be really, really honest and clear here. Yes. And then on the other hand, we are giving hate around people who have a slut behavior. Women who are free in their choices and free in their expression and free in their exploration, especially of their own sexuality, be it with other partners or not. Like where I'm from, you don't have to sleep around to be called a slut. You just gotta dress in an appealing, attractive way to be labeled as such. Yet on the other hand, we have like in this in a huge term coming up nowadays, kind of like trending, that is a sacred slut. So now I'm super curious, what's your take on sacred slut?
Thank you so much for asking this. Okay, so yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And it's all intention, right? It's like you can feel in, I mean, I know people can even feel it in my content, because sometimes people come to me and they're like, oh, I would never be able to like, share the dance videos that you're sharing online, because I go to these heels classes and I wear my lingerie and a big pair of stilettos and I do these dance classes. But it's so clear in my energy that I'm just there for me. It's so clear in my energy that I am not posting these pictures of myself in whatever I'm wearing, or moving the way that I'm moving for someone else. It's so clear. You can feel it in someone's energy when they are doing it out of a societal conditioning to perform, to attract a mate, to perform, to get laid, as such, as we would say in England. You can tell when someone's doing it from that energy, and that is nothing to be shamed for. Like, yeah, you fucking go, girl. You just, you get the attention. You take someone home if you want to get laid tonight. There's no shame in that either. But it's just when it comes from a place of, I need to do this to feel worthy. I need to get someone's compliment or validation, or someone to like come on to me or buy me a drink to feel sexy. That's when it's like a little bit on the shadow side of the slut archetype, I would say. That's like the unconscious slut. So for me, the sacred slut is the conscious slut that's reclaimed the way she dresses, the way she moves, the way that she expresses herself, just for her. Everyone enjoying it around her, or anyone that gets to enjoy it, anyone that's attracted to her, is a byproduct of her being in that expression for her own damn embodied empowerment. And she's just there for her. Like, this is why I dance. This is why, if I wear some nice clothes, I'm only ever doing it for me to feel like a fucking goddess. And it's remembering that we have access to that. It's remembering that we're in this body, we're in this feminine body with our breasts, with our soft bellies, with our magical skin that we can adorn however we choose to adorn ourselves for us. Like, and the clitoris is a perfect embodiment of that, because she is 8,000 nerve endings. That's double the amount of nerve endings as a male anatomy has, just for our pleasure. We get double the pleasure with no other reason. Like, that is just on our body for our enjoyment. It doesn't contribute to conception. It doesn't contribute to anyone else's pleasure. The clitoris is a reminder for women, you are in this body for you and for no one else. And like the pussy in total, with all of her thousands of nerve endings that are just there for our pleasure, that's just the reminder that your whole body gets to be that. The way you talk, the way you move, the way you live gets to be that. Like using your pussy oracle as a keeper of wisdom, as an ancient code to remember, I am here for me. And like, that's who that sacred slut is to me. She is a reminder from my pussy, from my clit, from my pleasure, that I am just here for me. If anyone else enjoys that, great. Good byproduct, good side effect, but it's not my goal. So the sacred slut is that reclamation. Again, that word comes up. It's like the main word I use in my work. It's reclaiming the way that we express ourselves as our birthright, just for ourselves. So yeah, I like the sacred slut movement. It's been helpful for a lot of the feminine to reclaim that for themselves. But it's just making sure that we're doing that in a way that we're also embodying our boundaries. It's got to be done safely, right? Like, we can't just go to a shady nightclub and you know, put yourself in the right environments to practice the sacred slut, to practice that embodiment. So I hold spaces like that here where I live. So go to workshops, look up workshops, do things online where you can dance like a slut in your bedroom and practice that first, so that you can embody that safety into your nervous system, and so that you can also learn to embody the aura of, look, but don't fucking touch me, I'm here for me. Like, you have to practice that boundary, and being in your sacred slut energy means you have to say no a lot more, because people are going to look at you in your empowered, confident, truthful, authentic, deeply sacred, ancient embodiment of a woman, and they're going to want a piece of that, because who the fuck wouldn't? That is mesmerizing and magnetic and like irresistible. So you have to practice your no. Like, the sacred slut comes with the word no. You have to do them in partnership. You have to practice your no as well. So if you're looking to embody the sacred slut, practice your no in like anywhere you can in your life, whether it's someone like asking if you want to go out tonight and you don't really feel like it. Practice your no. Practice your no as much as you can, because that is equal to the reclamation of the expression. We've got to reclaim the boundaries big time before you step into that like proper sacred slut. Yeah.
Oh, so much happening here. I'm totally overflowing right now with this great pleasure of being a woman. Wow, I love it. It's like, this feminine body, this feminine energy. I just freaking love it. And don't get me wrong, I'm super hyper hetero. I also love men. Totally. I love the masculine, but just like, yeah, these pleasures of an embodied woman. Wow. As you say, it is mesmerizing. And what I so much love about that, like, when we look back in TV, like instantly when I think like, okay, where do I know that archetype from? This embodied, erotic, sensual woman slut. It's like mostly in these super old school videos, like Elizabeth Taylor, for example, when we have like Cleopatra, or we have in these old it's like these weird religious movies that always played around Christmas time, you know. I don't think they're religious actually, but it kind of look like religious, you know what I mean, you know. And there's like I need to think about Ben-Hur and stuff like this, like these super old school movies. And then you see always these dancers, you know, these beautiful belly dancers and things, and these exotic women like presented with their belly free motion, really relaxed, moving themselves, having adorations of color, showing their hair vivid and open and rich. And when I look back, I always just saw them individually, barely in collectives. And that's one of the most beautiful experiences I actually had, stepping into that awareness and confidence myself. Like now I'm just wearing a tank top, whatever, but it's not only how you dress, it's really how you move, how you know yourself, how you hold yourself. And this what I learned is like, I feel I'm the most hot woman or person in the entire room. I'm the focal point of the room in the moment when I am that for myself. When I go wherever it is, I go to the gym, I go to a cafe, I go to a nightclub, whatever it is. I'm like, and I'm here freaking for myself. And I'm walking with that empowerment of like, and I'm unfuckable with. No matter what's happening, I got my back. I'm so deeply connected and I love myself so deeply. I'm not going to abandon myself for anybody else. That's when suddenly this radiance comes. And because you are your own focal point, I can feel how I'm becoming the focal point for others as well. That's this mesmerizing thing. And we learn also as children, you always want what you can't get. Because that suddenly you become that what you can't get, but not in this weird, hard to get play way, just in a real, authentic, like you just can't get that. I'm unownable. You will never, ever be able to own me for anything. You might be part of what I'm sharing and overflowing, but that's just it, honestly. And that is so deeply empowering. And what I love even more is to share that with other women, because that's what I learned after a while. Like, actually, this stage is big enough for all of us to stand there collectively. And the crazy thing is, and we're not taking away from each other, we're actually adding up onto each other, and we keep inspiring. And when I'm around an inspiring woman, I have that vibe. It's like, wow, my cup is overflowing and hers is overflowing. We flow into each other, and it's just like we're expanding our incredible vessel of femininity, of womanhood, and allow that to spill more and more over. And I just love that, like to have that deep experience of together being in such a tremendous overflow of self-love, actually.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing sisterhood in, because I mean, yeah, that is deeply the work I do. You know, group work is my passion. Like nearly every weekend where I live here in England, I'm holding events for women to come together. And just on Sunday night, like 17 of us were embodying all of the forbidden feminine archetypes, and we were doing tantric lap dance, and we were doing like the queen embodiment and putting our throne back on and practicing the way that we walk. And I love that you brought up the way that we move, because we went into that but more in like a dance sense. But I also want to bring up the way that we walk and take up space just on an everyday basis. And that's when I feel the most magnetic as well, is like when I can walk down the street with my shoulders back and my chest open and my spine long and my chin lifted, and be like, yeah, I'm a fucking orgasmic embodiment of the goddess. And, you know, people are like, hi. And they want to say, hey, because your heart is open. And that feels vulnerable sometimes. Like that feels vulnerable to a lot of women that I work with. They're like, I couldn't, you know, naturally we do this. We make ourselves smaller. We try to hide. Our physical body tries to become smaller as we try to protect our heart emotionally. But also I know a lot of women that try to hide their breasts physically. They don't want that gaze. They don't want to be looked at. They don't want to be the focal point. They want to disappear into the background and be safe. And actually, in my experience, I feel much safer walking as that empowered, confident woman that you, like you said, you get that like, yes, I'm unfuckable with, because I feel safer when I'm like, she knows her power. She's wild as fuck. I'm not even going to try and tame her and claim her and get her and suppress her. That's why I called the business the Wild Fem, because we're wild. We're wild women. We're free. And when I was walking small, post-trauma, post-abuse, of course, you're gonna have a period of time where you do go into safety. There's no shame in that. Please, you'll know when it's the right time to emerge from that. But like, I felt much less safe when I was like feeling vulnerable as fuck, making my body really small and like looking scared and weak. Like, I looked very vulnerable. I looked vulnerable because I was vulnerable, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in leaning into that vulnerability. But and I'm not saying you have to be strong all the time and open your chest, but just notice when your body naturally self-protects. Like, what environments are we putting ourselves in as women where naturally our body starts to close? And like, when you've got that body awareness of like, oh, here I feel safe to open my heart and be that empowered goddess. And here around these people in this environment, I'm closing. Notice that, and walk the fuck away from those environments where you make yourself smaller, and go and chase the places where you feel that you can be in that embodiment of your most empowered self. Be around those people, get in those environments, like go to those workshops, notice where you make yourself smaller in life. Because as much as as much as I can speak for myself now, as much as I am, of course, working every day to keep reclaiming this embodiment of this like empowered sovereign woman, there's still times where I'm in an environment where my body knows better than my heart and my mind, where my body knows we're not safe here. We're not safe. And she will react in that way. And it's then up to me to decide, no, body, it's okay. Let's open, let's expand, let's take up space and do what we need to do. Or whether I'm like, okay, we need to get out of here. I'm going to trust that primal instinct of my body. I'm going to listen to that and leave. So yeah, I think it's great to bring up the empowerment, but it can also be forced when your body knows better. Like, we can't deny our body wisdom and override it with the like independent, empowered woman vibe. I think that can be quite dangerous sometimes. There's like a balance, right? We've brought that in beautifully with the soft belly, and then like the strong spine as well. Like, there's that polarity in the body.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think this is so crucially important because, as you say, there is a risk actually, and you mentioned that before, this we need to be able to set the boundaries first. This is so crucial, so crucial. And as I say, we need to start to do that on a small level, because eventually for us to authentically open, not take on the fake mask of openness, because that's the thing. You can feel inside, you're sitting like that with crouched shoulders. You can feel like this. You can realize that this is a pattern holding you back physically. And you're like, oh, and this woman is walking like this. You force yourself into that and then keep walking. That's like an absolute suppression of your urge. As you say, like, that's a suppression of your body when there's not the healing work and there's not this understanding behind of like, wait, I can get myself into this open position through and trust experience with myself. And eventually we have to acknowledge that sometimes we are in feeling unsafe because we haven't been keeping ourselves safe. Sometimes we have to acknowledge that. Other times we didn't have a choice. I totally see that. But other times we did have, and we did not take really this responsibility we hold for ourselves. And we need to learn to be like, how can I keep myself really safe, actually? And for me, like a big step into having this confidence and this freedom, inner permission in myself, like, okay, Saskia, I know you got me. You got my back. Let's go. We can go full on in. I got that through one hand, this softening, tickling out this little girl almost that was scared and vulnerable, as you say, and be like, hey, you're safe. I got you. Tell me what's up, going into deeply gentle, nurturing practices. But on the other hand, by going into the Muay Thai gym and learning to actually really kick ass, and to have that balance of knowing I can, to a very certain extent, really keep myself safe no matter what happens. And as I say, also acknowledge this wisdom, like, okay, I have these skills. I can defend myself very well physically, myself. And still, if I'm walking around at night in the city or somewhere, and my body's like, oof, I can feel a shiver. No, don't go be like, oh, stay independent and strong. Nothing will happen to you. Like, no, maybe we don't go into that alley. Maybe we don't want to go into the subway right now. Maybe we go into the restaurant and call a cab, like maybe that's the right way to do. And I think it's very important to still acknowledge, as you just said, acknowledge the wisdom of the body and go hand in hand. We take care of her. She takes care of us. Right? Like it's an interdependent relationship we're having here that goes way. It's not an one-way direction.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And what comes up for me is like, obviously, it's a shame that we have to even feel in danger in this world. And a lot of women don't feel safe to walk home in the dark on their own. And that's a fucking shame. We should be able to walk home safely. We should be able to walk alone safely. We should be able to embody that open heart everywhere we go. But, it wouldn't be that case in the wild if we took ourselves into nature and we look at animals. The deer aren't going to stand the same when they're on their own compared to when they're in front of a lion. Like in nature, it's the same. We have that mirror that we're not always, not all environments serve us. Like my body doesn't feel very open these days when I go to nightclubs. Like if I go, I don't really go to nightclubs very often at all. It's like, yeah, and my body doesn't feel like she wants to drop into her expression there. But if I go to ecstatic dance, fuck yeah, I'm gonna drop into my expression. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna be in my sacred slut. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna like throw it around like no one's watching. But it's just listening to what your body wants, what your body needs, and it's going to look different to all of us. And some people listening will be like, well, I walk home in the dark and I feel my most empowered self, and I'm like, fuck yeah, that's amazing. Like we're all so different, so it's trusting your unique body and where you're safe. And I love that you're doing Muay Thai, and fuck yeah to that, like embodiment of safety in the body.
It's a game changer. Wow. It's like, I didn't expect that. I started as a good workout. I was like, okay, I did a self-defense course before, and that felt really good. Like this was next level empowering. And I luckily already had that awareness. There was still this, like, I started to build in muscle armor around myself. I'm like, wait, that's also another layer of protecting myself. I also don't want to lean into that. I'm going to keep going the middle way, or the middle path. But then I tried the Muay Thai just for fun because I was working in a Muay Thai gym and teaching the yoga there. And it was crazy. It's such a deeply emotional practice. Like the first time I overcame this, like, oh, this sucks when you stand on the back and you do your stuff. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. That's exhausting. My arms are heavy. And then my trainer was like, just punch that person you really hate. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, of course you know somebody you hate. Punch that person. Imagine the bag is that person. I'm like, really? And I was really hesitant. I was drawing a picture of somebody I had a lot of grudges still against. And by that point, I felt I'm quite evolved already in my emotional maturity and in my self-healing, etc. And I drew that image of that person. And I just a little bit hesitant, like, I don't want to hurt this person. Revenge is not the right thing. Anger is not the right thing. And suddenly it was saying, like, take this, take that. And then after a while, this image faded and other images came up. And it was a huge release. And just as you say, it was a reclamation. I finally closed the circuit in my body. There were so many moments and encounters with people where my body, I needed myself to say, no, that's not okay, or stop. I needed to do that, but I did not do that for whichever reason. Yeah, be it programming, be it and the influence, be it not being educated enough to know I can do that, I have the power to do that, it's appropriate to say no, yeah, be it a dysregulated nervous system that's just shutting down and doesn't think you're capable of saying no, right? And so all this suddenly came up, and it was such an healing release because my body was like, finally, she punched him or her. Finally, she smacked them. Because honestly, some people, of course, I'm not solving any of my real life problems with violence. I solve them with communication. But let's be honest, some people really deserve to be punched in the face. Like, for freaking real, like, and this closed the circuit and was so good for my body. And also, like, on an energetic level, it was like, oh, my body suddenly realized I don't have to protect no more. Now this person's punched, because the body is easy. The mind is easy. It doesn't get it if I'm punching this person in real right now or my visualization of the person. The body doesn't get the difference. The body's just like, there's this person, we're going to punch him, and it feels resistance. And it's like as if you punch that person, right? And then because it's back, it's not punching back. You're like, yes, I defeated that person. Awesome, right? And so then the body's like, wow, she's capable of keeping us safe. And I could feel this gave me so much more permission to be more of my authentic self, actually, because I prove myself I can handle it even in this primal way. And I think that's important. As I said, I'm not a fan of solving anything on a physical or violent level. I'm a huge fan of intellectual problem resolution, but we are primal beings and we have primal threats. That's for sure. And also we are wired primal. That's why we run for sex. It's super primal. There's nothing intellectual about that. We can use our intellect to transcend that and spiritualize that, but it's still a physical primal urge. And so resorting to these primal practices is so soothing for the body. Because it is an animal, let's be honest, so an evolved animal, but we're an animal.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that in astrology, Mars is the planet of anger and sexuality. Like they are hand in hand. Like we got to embody that rage. We've got to embody that rage. And I bow down to you for doing it in such an intentional way. Like, yeah, intention is everything, like you said. And when we bring in that intention, the body receives so much. Like, no one needs to carry around anger and grudges. It's taking up space in the body that could be filled with something more pleasurable. So we have to release it somehow. And I love the way you did that. And for anyone listening that doesn't have a Muay Thai gym or doesn't want to spend money on Muay Thai boxing lessons, then I just use my bed, my mattress, and my pillows, and I have a right go. And I also teach a yoga move in all of my women's embodiment sessions. We always release rage in every session before we do the sensuality. And we do something called chopping wood, which is where you like get your hands together and you bring them above your head and you imagine you've got an axe and you're like chopping with both of your hands down, and we scream the word no as we chop down. So we're reclaiming the word no, and we're releasing rage for all of the times that was taken away from us or ignored, or that we said yes because we didn't know we had the option to say no. And that's something that you brought in as well. Like, yeah, that rage that we can feel when you start doing this reclamation work, so much anger comes up because you're like, fuck, all of the times that I could have said no and I didn't. And we feel so much rage for all of the times that our body was violated, all of the times that we allowed that to happen because we were brainwashed to think that we needed to. All of the times that women around the world now are forced into arranged marriages where they have to have sex and have children when they don't want to, when they don't feel safe, when they don't even want this person in their life. Like, all of the times now, I feel embodied rage for the feminine as a fucking collective. That's a lot of anger to carry around in your body. Like, we've got to have a practice to release that. Like, a world of anger, centuries of feminine suppression. Like, that is some anger that we've got to release as women.
Yes.
Whew.
Absolutely. I hear this. And isn't it crazy? Like, I find like anger is the number one thing that's not allowed in quotation mark for women. It's a number one thing girls learn not to do. When boys beat each other up, it's like, yeah, it's normal, they're boys. But when girls do that, like, no, don't do that, it's not normal. Well, I'm like, no, it's freaking normal. I grew up with three girls. It's normal. We beat each other up. We pull each other's hair. We bite. We scratch. We are nasty fighters. Wow. And it's
Yeah.
normal, right? And it's so interesting that this is the thing, the number one thing I feel like that's not allowed for women to have, the number one emotion for women not allowed to have. But conveniently, it's also the emotion teaching us boundaries. I'm like, oh, how convenient to not allow to do this emotion, to have that emotion actually, when that's the emotion that's going to give me a boundary. And for me, I had this thing like like anger was my number one thing of working through in my entire life because I suppressed it so much. And so I was so angry and I had these huge tantrums until my mid-20s. I was breaking stuff in arguments. Even when I had an argument with a girlfriend, I just lost my shit completely, tripped out, broke something, threw something and stuff. And yeah, I don't know how many mobile phones I had to buy in my life, because he's sending a stupid message and I'm just smacking it into the corner and stuff. And now I'm like, you should have smacked a guy probably. Wow. and 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 all the time, also really setting a healthy boundary was my problem. That was my weak spot, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
we need that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for normalizing that. And thank you for owning that so authentically right now and giving all of like that was such a permission slip for me because reflecting on me, I was always labeled like dramatic and reactive because I would
Mm.
also like lose my shit. And I remember one specific moment, like before I'd started this work, I think I was probably already teaching yoga. Yeah, I was definitely already teaching yoga. So like I was kind of getting towards the path, but that was the only kind of thing that I was doing to work on myself was yoga every now and then. And I had a car crash and I didn't do anything to move it through my body because I wasn't aware of practices to do that at that time. I didn't know to like shake out the nervous system, shake out the shock, shake out, everything that had happened in that car accident. So I got home and a few days later, I was with my long-term partner. We were living at my mum's house at the time. And I just flipped out. Like the tiniest thing happened. The tiniest thing happened. I don't even remember what it was. Something broke. Something that I was using broke. And I just burst into this fit of rage. And I was like screaming and smashing things in my room. And my male partner at the time grabbed my body and tried to stop me like moving my arms, and he tried to stop it. He was scared. He was like, stop it, stop. And then my mum came in the room because she was in the house and she was like, it's okay, sometimes we just need to scream. And then she just like stood there. He set me free and I had this full on like release. And I love on reflection looking back at like my partner at the time didn't feel safe. He felt like I was going to hurt myself. He was just trying to protect me. It was very innocent. But my mum, my feminine mum, she knew. She was like, yeah, fucking scream. You've had a shit week. You've had a car crash. Like, let it the fuck out. And she encouraged that. And like,
yes,
that's a moment that I won't forget, that, the woman in our lives can really hold that sometimes. And I really don't love to gender separate these days. Like I've had a gender fluid partner recently and I'm very aware of this. So I try not to gender separate, but like yeah, it's happened in my past where the anger has been less accepted by the men in my
Mm,
life, where it feels scary and frightening, and they want to protect us from that. Totally fair, totally innocent. But
mm.
the women in my life are like, fuck yeah, give me more
Yeah,
to let
yeah.
it out. And they're like, they want it, you know? So yeah, I really
Hmm.
see that. Women are craving it. Women are craving
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
Yes, I agree to that. And I also freaking love it. Like per se, I don't love throwing tantrums because it costs so much energy, especially
Yeah.
moments where it's totally unrelated. I'm grateful for the trigger to bring it out. But then usually I throw the tantrum like, okay, great. And now I still have that other problem. The shit is still broken, you know? Like,
Yeah.
awesome. But in general, I really love that empowerment. And funnily enough, we have the same thing in my family. Like when I'm going nuts, my mom is just like, yeah, she just has a moment. She needs to go nuts and then she's coming back to normal. And that's it. And they just like, as long as we have just that rule, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can have any emotion you need to have, as long as you don't throw it onto people who have nothing to do with that,
Mm,
or
mm,
especially without consent. It's different if you're like, I'm so freaking angry. Can I just tell you my shit because you need someone to project it to? Okay, that's different. And that's kind of like the only rule we have. Like, you do you, have your human, full on, crazy, unpredictable experience, but don't spill your shit onto other people as long as it's not permitted to do so, right? And I really
yeah.
love that. And that transformed my relationships as well so freaking deeply because you're just allowed. You are allowed to have a human experience together. Yeah. We are
Mm,
allowing that to each other in and still respectful to both people's way. And
mm,
I find that so connecting. Like, wow. And it's for me also so important. Like, you gotta be able to argue properly. Like, it's a no-go if the person across from you cannot argue with you when they do some stupid shit and you get angry and they can't have that anger. I'm like, what the fuck? Doesn't work out. We gotta be able to argue here, you know? Like,
yeah.
gotta go
Yeah.
full spectrum.
Yeah. 100%.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up projection. That's definitely not helpful.
Mm.
And also on the subject of like embodying your rage, I think it's good to set up consent for that. Like if you're embodying your rage around someone else, I've had it with my girlfriends before where we've like gone on a trip together and we've been doing like morning practices and someone was like, I just really need to scream. And one of the other women was like, actually, I'm not in a space for that. I feel really vulnerable. So like really check in with your environment, you know, don't
Mm.
just like release your rage anywhere because someone could be in a really vulnerable position. Someone could have been through trauma where your embodiment of rage triggers them into trauma response. I've had that before in an
Yes.
office environment with an old male manager and he like freaked out about something and started throwing shit around and it really put me into trauma response from my sexual trauma that was quite violent with a man. So like a man
Mm.
in that moment in the office when I felt unsafe, like it can bring things up. So yeah, I think
Yes.
thank you so much for bringing in the consent, not just in the words that we speak and the the venting that we might need to do, but also in the embodiment of the rage. Like if you're sharing a house with someone, let them know I'm going to be embodying my rage for like the next 10 minutes. Is that okay? I'm going to go up to my bedroom. You might hear some banging, some growling, some screaming, whatever. Like is that cool? And you know,
Yes.
yeah, just setting up that consent is so important.
Yes. Absolutely. And I find this is really the difference between being an empowered human or an uncontrolled human. Like,
Mm.
we can be enslaved or we can be in master with our emotions. And when we simply are overrolled with anger, with grief, even with whatever, and we have no control when we go into the story, when we go into the release, when we go into fulfillment of that emotion, we become slaves. That's really
Yeah.
holding us back. Versus when we are able to feel it, acknowledge it's there. And usually an emotion averagely just takes 40 seconds for its arouse and for its release. Yeah, 40 seconds, that's it. And I find this so beautiful to have that ability to feel it. Wow, I can feel a lot of anger right now. Okay, I wait a couple of breaths. Then I look into it. Is this not the right time for me to actually bring that up? I usually always, when I feel anger coming up, and it's about a situation where I need to set a boundary, for example, be it in private or professional relationships. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go for a walk or going to journal about that or talk to a friend about that and see what is the wisest way to express what this anger is bringing to me, actually. And then to know, okay, and now when is the wisest way? If the anger is just really a lot and I need to get it all out, when is the wisest way to do that? Or to create these safe containers of feeling, like you are doing in your workshops, right? Like, especially also with grief. Like, I love that in my daily life, I have moments just of grief and they're incredibly beautiful, but then they're also gone in less than a minute. It was a beautiful, touching moment. It's gone, but then no, okay, there is still grief in my body. This weekend, I go to a waterfall, or like I light some candles, or I call a friend who's sharing the same grief about the same person, maybe, right? And we have like, and recalling of that and tap deeper into allowing that emotion to come up. And it's so beautiful that we can do that, actually, like workshops, like rituals, set that space and these emotions come back up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's setting up the safety. And ultimately, the space is our body and the safety exists there. Like, ultimately, it's creating that safe environment for emotion in our body. And I found through embodying my emotions, even when they're not there, that's what set up the safety for me.
Mm.
I used to have this 15-minute practice, which was like 4 songs. And one was for me to release anger. One was for me to get sad. It would be like a sad song. One was for me to feel like really happy and like jump around and have a rave. And then one of them was like an integration kind of, let's lie here and let it all
Mm.
settle in. And I used to do that every day for like maybe 2 months. I did it every day. So I would embody my full range of emotions to let my body know it's safe to feel anger, it's safe to feel sad, it's safe to feel happy,
Mm.
it's safe to feel calm. And I would go through those even when it wasn't present. I wasn't even feeling sad that day. Doesn't matter. Put on the sad song, integrate that safe space in your body. Like, so I did that for a while just to kind of remind my body that it's okay to feel these feelings, remind my body that I'm the safe space and that all of them are safe to come up, but that when they come up, I know what to do because I'm used to this emotion. So it doesn't take over because I've embodied it every day with my music, with my headphones, thumping my pillows. Like, so it doesn't take over anymore because I practiced it. I practiced being consciously sad, consciously
Mm.
angry, consciously ecstatic, so that I'm not like, out of control, like taken over all the time. So yeah, that's a practice that I really recommend for people to just,
Mm.
yeah, integrate that safety in the nervous system for emotions to come up and for them not to take over everything.
I love that. I want that playlist. Honestly, what
Yeah.
must this playlist be like? Wow, that sounds really, really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. So we are slowly coming to an end. I still had so many awesome questions for you prepared, but we just went on to a free riff. Before we wrap it up, is there anything you would love to share with our dear listeners here?
Mm. I just feel like we've been like swimming in the full range spectrum of flavors of
Mhm.
femininity. And I guess that's what I want to bring up to people is that like your sexuality, your version of feminine cannot be put in a box. Do not allow yourself to
Mm.
put it back into a box because even me doing my work, some people will turn up to the workshops in their like lingerie and their silk robes, but that's not the only expression of sensuality. That's not the only expression of your feminine. Your feminine can be fucking angry. She can wear like plastic bags and like baggy t-shirts and sweats to a sensuality workshop if that's what makes her feel alive that day. And the minute we start boxing ourselves back in, that's when we've started listening again to society, patriarchy, conditioning, shame. Like, so even when you listen to us today, like, you don't have, you get to decide now, you get to rewrite, you get to reclaim, you get to revolutionize what feminine is to you, and that is going to look so different to all of us. And that's what makes it so fucking amazing to be in this human body, is that we get all of the flavors of human being. And I just want everyone to feel that permission slip to bring their flavor, bring your most authentic, unique flavor. And that is your gift, and that is your feminine, and that gets to change 10 times a day.
I love it. Wow. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I personally, as a feminine health coach, wearing jeans 24/7, basically. If I wouldn't be living in Thailand, I would be sleeping in jeans. I'm not kidding. Like, I just dig my jeans, and I have only two of them, okay? But the other ones are also just shirts, basically. Yeah. And I just feel the most lush in that way. Yes, sometimes I wear a beautiful dress. Yes, often I also wear my lingerie below, but that's just how I feel the most me. And as I say, the most alive. That's just like suiting who I am with all my tendencies, what I like to do throughout my day and everything. I even teach yoga in jeans. Like, that's just what I do, you know? And I so love that you say that, because it's not a mask. It's not something, a dress you put on. We're not performing. It's
Yeah.
about feeling feminine, exactly, feeling awesome. And it's not only about feeling feminine, it's about feeling fucking deeply open and deeply juicy and vibrant and alive and rich and sensual, connected to your senses right now, right here. As you say, like, even when you wear, I don't know, whatever it is, right? If you have messy hair or not, if you're wearing makeup or not, if like full on greasy, happy with your Christmas belly or whatever it is, you know, like that's what it's about. Feeling vibrant and alive and just rich in that feeling 24/7 inside yourself, I feel like.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes.
Mm. Thank you so much. Wow, I have so many more questions. I think we need to do another episode and one beautiful, happy day. So,
Yes.
for everybody who wants to hear more of Charlotte, check the show notes below in the description. There's a link to your podcast, Wildly Orgasmic. It's a very delicious, rich, precious thing that's out there on this wonderful internet. So thank you so much for creating that. Everybody, just straight drop down there and have a listen there. We will also put your Instagram below. Is there anything else you want to tell? Like, how can we work with you? What's the best way to stay connected with you?
Thank you so much for that invitation. Yes. So I've most recently opened the doors to a pre-recorded lifetime access experience for women to come into, called Wet and Worthy Woman. And this gives you like structured temple nights for you to date yourself at home. So there's like the temple of love, where you do get into that sensual flavor. There's the temple of wild, where you reclaim your voice and you massage your pussy with a de-armoring technique that allows you to release tension and numbness. There's the temple of night, where we go into the sacred slut and I teach like a tantric lap dance ritual. So it allows you to explore that full range of like feminine flavors and to discover your authentic embodied truth in your most empowered expression. So that's the way that you can work with me right now. It's a really accessible price right now, and it's lifetime access, so you can go back and do the temple nights whenever you feel like it. I recommend people do it once a week to anchor into that juicy, turned on, confident woman that you feel like you truly are. And yeah, so Wet and Worthy Woman. I also have one-to-one spots open, but they can discover that through there as well. But yeah, Wet and Worthy Woman, everyone. It's a revolution.
Yes, that sounds so lush. Fuck yeah. So everybody, check the link right now below here. Make sure to have a check on that and secure your spot. Wow, I'm
Mm.
so excited for everybody to join that. Woo, sounds super, super lush. I'm lucky now it's evening for me, and I think I have to host a temple night for myself right now because I'm so vibrant now from this conversation, from all these
Oh,
vibes.
yes. Yes, I love that for you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Well, I think we are at our end. Thank you so much, dear Charlotte, for being here with us. Thank you, listeners, for being with us through this valley and mountain ride of in conversation. We tapped, as you said, the full spectrum. We had pretty big light and pretty deep shadow aspects covered. I really love that. I'm in for everything of it. There's no taboos, and I freaking love that. Thank you for being on that ride with me.
Oh, thank you so much for facilitating the conversation, and thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you, and see you next week.